So, Boom wasn't too bad, wasn't it?
Oh, it was good. It wasn't Moffat's best, but I liked it a lot, and it was so much better than the previous 2 episodes.
Guess we should avoid Russell T Davies scripts in the future.
Might be wise. So, who wrote this next one?
Hang on! Before we switch off, the trailer hints at a very spooky episode, and Doctor Who's done a lot of spooky episodes since 2005.
That's right! We've had some truly spooky stories like The Girl in the Fireplace, Silence in the Library, The Empty Child, World Enough and Time, Blink, Last Christmas, Listen...
And who wrote those, eh?
Well... well...
I'll save you the bother. Stephen Moffat.
Okay, yes, Moffat's a master of turning mundane situations into really spooky ones. But he's not the only one. Others have written Night Terrors, The Impossible Planet, Sleep No More, The Unquiet Dead.
And Russell T Davies didn't write any of those.
I can't believe I'm going to spring to his defense, but RTD has written some very good spooky episodes before. Heck, Wild Blue Yonder is like the best of 2023's 60th anniversary specials, and that was spooky as heck. And he wrote Waters of Mars, an excellent sci-fi horror story. And let's not forget Midnight, undoubtedly the scariest Doctor Who episode since the revival.
Alright, let's give it a go then. What's the worst that could happen, eh?
45 minutes later.
Alright, let's talk about this. McClock?
Spoiler alert! Shields up! Before we start, what the heck is the deal with Susan Twist?
I know, right? I've been keeping track, and she's appeared in Wild Blue Yonder.
She was Isaac Newton's maid.
She was in Space Babies.
As a recording, one of the crew members who abandoned the station.
Then, in The Devil's Cord.
As a lunch lady.
She popped up in Boom.
As the villain god Ambulance AI.
And now, she's in 73 Yards.
As a hiker.
It's not unusual for an actor to play different parts in a show.
It's unusual if there's that many. Plus, in this one, Ruby thinks she recognizes her. I'm telling you, there's a link between them all. There's something going on with that lady, and it ain't right.
You might be onto something, Gigi, but whatever it is, if it is something, it'll make sense later on this season, as there's no revelation to this mystery in this episode.
It will make sense later on. Hopefully.
Yeah. Hopefully. Come on, guys, you've made me watch 73 Yards, so let's talk about 73 Yards.
What was the point of that story, I ask you?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. For 95% of its duration, this episode was truly excellent.
The mystery, the tension, the horror. The deeper you went, the worse it got, in a really good way.
The focus is pretty much exclusively on Millie Gibson playing Ruby, and she does not disappoint. She's incredibly good and carries the whole episode on her shoulders as she tries to understand what's happening to her as she loses everyone around her and has to somehow make sense of it all on her own. Perfect. No notes.
And the mystery was perfect too. What's going on? Who's that old woman? Who is Mad Jack? The mystery keeps the show going because it's so crazy and impossible. We have to know.
The Doctor and Ruby travel to Wales and accidentally disturb a fairy circle, an innocent-looking thing, until the Doctor just disappears, and an old lady appears, signaling to Ruby, but never letting her get too close to her.
It's like she's magically always at a safe distance.
The 73 Yards mentioned in the title.
Magic and supernatural. Again.
Yes, it's supernatural, but it was well done.
I liked it when Ruby got to a pub and offered to pay with her phone, but the landlady didn't know what she was talking about.
Oh yeah, for a moment we thought, we don't know what year this is. Maybe it's in the past.
But she was just messing with her because, you know, yokels.
That was fun, and the scene was so reminiscent of the start of An American Werewolf in London, only better. The shots, the tension, the script, they really sold it to us.
But the real horror was with that lady and the mystery surrounding her. I have to admit, this was good. Other people could go to her and talk to her, but Ruby never could. And whatever she told us people, they would run away never to return. What a cool premise.
And Ruby loses everyone because of that, even her mom.
That was so heartbreaking when that happened.
I was expecting the old lady to somehow kill anyone who came to see her.
That was definitely the inference at first, but for Ruby, I think the actual outcome was so much worse.
And I liked that something the Doctor mentioned in passing, like he so often does, turn out to be a crucial part of the story. Ah, yes. Never trust a Welshman, especially one who goes into politics.
Yeah, Ruby making the connection years later, because this episode spans a lifetime, turns the story from horror into a copy of The Dead Zone.
Which wasn't a bad thing, I must admit. Although, didn't you feel that it was a little too much of a carbon copy? Both the movie and the episode deal with a government leader who in the future will trigger a nuclear war, and both protagonists realize they're the only ones who can stop him.
I have no problem with borrowing from other stories. We all do it. The important thing is you give it a new twist or a new angle. Motha's Last Christmas is a perfect example of that.
That part of the story was so tense when Ruby realizes what she has to do as she walked further and further away until she reached the magic 73 yards, all while the security guards are rushing to her position.
The guns pointing at her were a little OTT, but apart from that, it was a very effective scene.
And we all thought, ha, that's it. That's her purpose. Except it wasn't. That old lady kept following her for the rest of her life.
The ending, though. Oh, my wild apricot.
Yeah, can you say the ring?
That was the scariest moment of the story. At the end of her life, that old lady gets closer. The light switches on and off, and each time it comes back on, she's closer still. Perfect horror trope.
Trope, maybe, but I think it'll always be effective.
As it was here. She slowly turns around and is about to face Ruby.
That's the crescendo of the story. Peak horror and all, where we'll finally see the horror face to face. Hey, Gigi? Gigi? And then the whole story, the whole construct, the entire edifice just comes crashing down. Turns out the old lady is Ruby, who's been trying to tell her younger self all these years not to step on that fairy circle.
What?
Quoi?
What?
Was?
What? That made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Not only that, but when she somehow travels back in time at the start of the story, younger Ruby now doesn't step on that circle. Somehow. Old Ruby doesn't do anything different. How could she? But somehow, this time, young Ruby doesn't break the circle.
But how? How does it work? Why does it work? What actually happened? If the lady was old Ruby all along, why did she follow her for a whole life? Just to tell her not to break a circle she stepped on years prior? Why did she no longer age?
It's the worst kind of bootstrap paradox ever. They had us. They kept us going all that time because in such stories, the big payoff is the resolution. It's the understanding of what's going on when it finally all makes sense.
Except here, RTD weaved a perfect mystery, but must have had no idea how to end it, so he just reset the whole thing.
Even if there was no proper understanding of what's going on, it would have worked better had the circle not been broken. Old Ruby goes back in time, tries to warn herself, but fails, and the circle repeats itself ad infinitum. That would have worked for a self-contained story, not one linked to regular characters who still have other adventures to experience.
And that's why it doesn't work. All the best horror stories do explain why the horror is there in the first place. The Ring, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, they're all fantastical as this story is, but we, the audience, get to understand why this is happening, but not here. There's no explanation here. There's no realization.
Why did the Doctor disappear?
We don't know.
Why did the TARDIS lock Ruby out?
We don't know.
What did the old lady tell people to make them utterly terrified?
We don't know.
Was Ruby supposed to save the world from nuclear Armageddon?
We don't know.
How did old Ruby manage to go back in time?
We don't know.
What's the significance of the 73 yards between old and young Ruby?
We don't know. We don't know anything. Plus, as the time loops and resets, the characters have no memory of what took place. They don't learn anything. They don't grow. It's a loop that serves no purpose for anyone.
That means Ruby won't remember she saved the world all by herself, even though she didn't, since everything was reset.
Yeah, I gather that Welsh madman will still become Prime Minister in the future now, and will have to be stopped in a different way.
This is the worst kind of story. Fantastic setup, fantastic execution, great acting, great sense of terror and foreboding, utterly ruined in the last minutes by a non-resolution which doesn't explain anything and leads to more questions which we know will never get answered.
Feels like I was just sold a lemon.
And we know RTD can do better because
He did so much better in the past.
It's better than Space Babies.
Anything's better than Space Babies, Gigi. Even the worst story ever told has now been made slightly better by the existence of Space Babies.
Well, Midnight is still one of the scariest Doctor Who episodes, and RTD wrote that.
I'm starting to wonder if he got lucky when he wrote it. Come on, McClock. What about Turn Left? He wrote that one too, and it too dealt with an alternate future of sorts. Yeah, but that one explained exactly what was going on, and Donna got to remember her alternate life and grow because of it. 73 Yards left no trace for anyone. My point is, RTD can be a good writer, offering us great premises and satisfying conclusions. So why the hell is he not doing that now?
This is so frustrating, guys. With Boom, we saw that Ncuti Gatwa can be a truly excellent doctor, and here, Millie Gibson shows how fantastic she can be too. But they need stories that will propel them, not stuff like that which ends up frustrating and confusing the audience.
Maybe the mystery will be resolved in a later episode?
That's possible, but how frustrating would that be? It's like having to do homework for your entertainment.
He did that with Bad Wolf.
That wasn't a major mystery. These were breadcrumbs peppered throughout the episodes that made sense when we reached the 2005 finale. But if you missed them, it didn't detract from the stories in any way. 73 Yards' mystery is the story. It would have been good to know what it was all about by the end, don't you think? Also, don't forget that this is a show that is losing viewers hand over fist. Overnight viewers for Space Babies were 2.6 million, which dropped by 200,000 for The Devil's Cord, which aired at the same time.
Hardly surprising considering the quality of the script.
And fell further for Boom to 2.04 million.
But Boom was the best so far.
Yeah, but viewers didn't risk it after experiencing the first two. So how many will be left by the time a possible answer to this particular story might be revealed?
If it ever does.
I don't think frustrating your audience is the key to success.
So, what do? Do we stop watching or do we carry on?
There's a growing disappointment with this series to be sure, but it's also laced with a morbid fascination to see what happens next.
The next one seems to be about a giant tardigrade killing people on social media.
Looks like a Sarah Jane adventure.
Wanna flip for it?
Go on.
Call it
Heads.